What is the proper balance between art and acquisition, generosity and consumerism? Can generosity be a subject of critical artistic examination? What is the value or potential of art that is no longer physically present? Can we use the absence of an object to evoke a first-hand experience of a lived moment in time, or as a means to imagine what lies beyond it? What role does an undirected trajectory play in the outcome of an artwork? This firing, called a pit firing or a smoke firing, is mostly for the interesting effects that happen on the surface of the vessels as the smoke penetrates the clay. What range of experiences will participants have in giving, receiving during the passage of the Patra, and will that spin off to other actions? So the Patra Passage is about an experiment in giving and receiving. So this one's got some writing on it. It's a fragment of a T.S. Eliot poem from Burnt Norton, which I love. It shows up in almost all of my work sooner or later. It's less about these bowls as an object. It's less about these bowls as art. It's more about the experience that's going to be collected as this project proceeds. The object is not the gift. It is the opportunity for the gift. There's this movement between having a lot of oxygen and having oxygen deprivation, which is reduction. So between the two, these vessels are going through a lot of changes right now. You are starting to see the effect of the smoke. And if you sort of peer between some of these burning logs, you can see what's happening with the printing, because the smoke is filling in the background of the porous clay body, and the printing is keeping that smoke from penetrating in that area. So there's some interesting contrast that's going on. We're going to wait for about 20 minutes, and then I will be adding some salt and some copper sulfate to the firing. That's going to allow there to be some other kinds of accidental things that can happen to the surface. The salt and the copper sulfate volatilize and they become color. It's kind of a nice, humble quality to the work. And that's important to the finished product, that these have that earthy quality to them, the effect of the smoke and the combination of that with the gilding sets up a kind of interesting dichotomy between the thing that is familiar and common and humble with a sacred quality that the gilding and the patina that I'll do after this will lend to it. These are some of the 108 vessels that are part of the Patra Passage. It is really about the experience, and the experience is set up to be an experiment in giving and receiving. So these 108 vessels on September 28th, along with their little paintings, will be given ritually at the Museum of Glass to 108 recipients that I've chosen. These are people that I am grateful for. These are people who matter in my life. And I will be giving these vessels to them to keep for up to 4 months. And then they will have the opportunity to choose a recipient for the vessel in the next giving and receiving phase. Doing 108 of these requires a lot of repetitive labor. And it honors the repetitive labor that we all have in our lives, that we pay attention to. And because of the repetition of movement, there's a kind of meditative aspect to working with these vessels. while I'm making these vessels, I'm thinking about making a very compelling object, but I'm also thinking about and imagining the people who will receive it. What will they see in this? Is it an important object to them? Is it something that disappears because it is insignificant? To what degree will these have meaning to the people who are receiving them? And whether the fact that they handle them and they become part of the experience of the vessel. I hope that there's some interest in the fact that these have collected stories, that there is something important about the handled objects in our lives, that our memory of the handled object becomes an important part of the object itself, the way that we will re-experience something after the object is no longer with us.
The most meaningful part of having the Patra vessel for me is participating in something much, much bigger than myself, and something that would go places that I didn't even think about. What about for you?
I think it's quite common for mother-daughter relationships to have some complexity in giving and receiving. And I certainly know over the course of my life there have been things that Mom has offered to me that I have not received very graciously. Do you think that's well said?
I think that's very well said.
And there was something really lovely in when she asked me, could I give this to you? Because she actually asked permission. That it was just an immediate, instantaneous, oh, that would be so lovely. I would graciously receive that with both hands. And just that gesture, just that exchange, that receiving, and my receptivity in receiving was really powerful.
I want the vessel to be part of our life on a daily basis. I want it to be viewed, and I want whatever happens with it to just happen.
It's just one of those things that no matter what day you look at it, it's going to be different than the last time you looked at it. And so it's pretty special.
I think that there's some people who could benefit from the experience and the practice of receiving, and maybe even learn to be better at giving through the process of practicing giving.
And so these vessels refer to the word patra, which is Sanskrit for the bowl that never goes empty. I love that. The bowl that never goes empty. It's the name for the alms bowls that the monks carry in various parts of the world. They go out and they receive the offering from the community, and food and money and fruit and whatever, and they receive that offering, bring it back to the monastery, and it nourishes both the community and the spiritual community, and there's a great interconnectedness as a result. So I want these to be the idea of this interconnectedness, that you are all now part of the Patra Passage, and also a reminder that what is ever received in the bowl is enough for the day. Whatever is received is enough for the day. They have collected my stories. They have witnessed my life, and they are now witnessing your life. And they will continue to collect the narratives as the passage continues.
What do you think you'll do with it, or where will you place it? Or
I think I won't place it. I think it's going to find its way in light spaces and dark spaces, and I'm hoping that it will become at times a point of conversation and to help people link together in communication and to talk about this.
And so when I think about the bowl, I think about all we need to think about is today and worry about today and not cling. And the bowl represents not only receiving what is enough for the day, but it's also about letting go of clinging to things, because when we give things away, then it's like the gift of the moment. It's more, you're more present in the moment, and there's so much joy in that. Out here in my studio, I do healing work, and so I incorporate smudging, which is an ancient ritual of burning sage for clearing the energy in this studio space, and also for clearing the energy around a person. So I brought the Patra out here, and I got this idea that it could be a smudging bowl. And so what I do is I sometimes take off a leaf from my sage stick, and I light it on fire, and I drop it in the bowl, and it smolders in the bowl, and we move the bowl around to clear the energy, and the smoke permeates the space in the room. Or sometimes I actually light the whole smudging stick on fire, and as it starts to smoke, I just set it in the bowl. And the bowl holds this beautiful stick perfectly.
Some people knew right away who they wanted to give their vessel to when their time was over. And others really struggled with having so many people they wanted to give it to. They weren't sure at all who they would give it to until the very last minute. There were others who had no idea how they would give this away, didn't want to give it away. I had people who felt very strangely about even opening the box. One person said, "Sometimes I turn away from the very gifts I've been given. Sometimes I too want to destroy the bowl." Many of the Patra recipients spoke of feeling energy in the vessel. Some of the comments were, "An intense energy emanated into my hands. I felt the bowl beating like a heartbeat. When I hold it, I feel the energy of the earth, and I've never felt a material like this before. Its vibration was palpable. It was a witness into the journey of my soul." All kinds of serious and silly experiences followed these vessels around. And as I said, all of them are proper ways to have used the vessel or to have thought of it. This was an experiment in giving and receiving, without any particular outcome that had to occur, and without any religion being cited, and without any prescribed approach to how to use or think of the vessels.
Hi.
How are you? What's a good walk-in?
Thank you.
Okay, so it's an art project, all right? And there's this bowl, you know, and there's money, and, you know, there's concept. You know what? Just, you know, what kind of soup do you want?
First, when you think of bowl, what do you think of? You think of soup. So this was the proper place, the best soup emporium in the Puget Sound region. And it seemed simple because a bowl is something that is, when empty, wants to be filled, when full, wants to be emptied. And so I thought what might interest people in a bowl other than soup, and you provide the soup, would be to use money. And so I put $20 in here and left it for 24 hours.
and it pissed the people off.
I got to get this off my chest right away. People would come in the door, look at the sign, like Mr. Roberts said, it's pretty cut and dried, give or take, and they're like, what do I do? What is this all about? It's as simple, clear cut as it could be.
They didn't know what to do. And at the end, that $20 had increased, and we made money on the deal. And that was kind of a surprise to me. We are used to being asked to give money with people on the street, wherever it is, or online, whatever it is, give me money, give me money. But when people are given a chance to take money, they don't necessarily do it. It confuses them. So I was glad to confuse people with bowl number 91.
Where did you give them the ball?
At a bowling alley. We went bowling.
Whatever I thought at the beginning of this project, it just hasn't been at all what I could have anticipated. It is so much larger and so much more amazing. The experiences have been deep and important. The vessels have collected stories and witnessed lives, and the sharing within the community of the people of the Patra Passage has been a very significant experience, both for me and I think for everybody who's been involved.
I'm fascinated by language, and I thought this was beautiful. You know, the script is just beautiful. But I decided it was probably Burmese and Tibetan. When I got back to the college, I called one of our faculty members. She says, well, there are 4 different scripts. And then she talks about how she compared the letters in each line, and she said they may be the same line of Sanskrit or Pali poetry or scripture written in 4 different Brahmic scripts. So that's what she came up with. So then I thought, well, you know, I also have a faculty member who's from Burma originally. So I came back from a meeting or something like the next day, and in my office were this faculty member and his mother. So she looked at it. She said, "You know, this is not modern Burmese. This is some very it's this ancient form of the language." So she said, "I really can't. I can't translate it for you." We had another person who is a former faculty member from Burma, and his sister has never left Burma. And she took it to 2 monks with PhDs in Burma, and they studied it and came up with something about how one of the lines says, "The king conquered his kingdom for 24 years and then passed away."
Oh my goodness. You are amazing. That's just such a great story. And it involves so many interesting people.
It does involve a lot of interesting people.
So it brought people into this Patra Passage.
Including these incredibly learned monks in a monastery in Myanmar.
Yes. I love it.
So that's kind of where things are.
This vessel went to some very lovely people, and during the time it was with one of these families. Their son died in a motorcycle accident, very tragically and very unexpectedly. And the vessel witnessed very difficult times during their life in trying to deal with the meaning of this experience. And I want to read just a little bit about what was written. On March 24th of this year, we lost our 24-year-old son due to injuries he received in a motorcycle accident. When I got the call, every facet of my world stopped. Time stopped, meals stopped, sleep stopped. Many times my thoughts have wandered to the Patra Bowl. As my time with the bowl comes to an end, I realize this vessel never goes empty. What is received that day in the bowl is enough. It is an ongoing act of giving and receiving. There's enormous grace in that understanding.
Vessel number 4 and I have been friends for a long time, and even before I knew of vessel number 4. I traveled for many years across the world with my wife Lynda in places like Tibet, and the vessel had a huge impact on her life there and on mine, more vicariously, but over time more directly as well. We were both intrigued by that wonderful culture and its simplicity and the notion of giving and receiving that we saw among the Tibetan Buddhists and particularly the monks. It moved us very, very deeply and called us to going back to Asia time and time again. And my passion is by motorcycle, and the reason for that is it allows you to immerse yourself as you can't passing by in a train or a bus. So we began to immerse ourselves in that culture, and the humble objects of that culture had an impact, and Lynda in particular began to bring them home, and they began to change her life and her art in ways that I would observe but didn't fully understand. Over time it led to the Patra Passage and Lynda's need to give back and send forth and to see what would happen. And it was a pleasure for me to watch her contemplate this and not know where it would go, but put herself into it and give to it as she created these marvelous, marvelous vessels. Ultimately, the 108 that are part of the Patra Passage, and this one, number 4, which became my friend. And number 4 went with me on a journey, another journey into the wilderness, where for 3 weeks I was alone and I had no human interaction. The only interaction that I had with any object or person other than nature was with this vessel. And it was a time of self-examination for me. And each day I would sit with this vessel in front of me, and it would quiet me. And it would take me to an inner place of stillness. And once I reached that place, I would begin to write. Some days I would write for 8 or 9 hours at a time. And this vessel played a huge part in calling that forth from me. As it became my friend and gave to me each day that way, I needed to give back to this vessel. I had found a beach with beautiful white rocks. I began to collect those and put them back into the vessel each day as it gave to me. I would give to it. The retreat ended as this is my only thoughtful companion, and I brought it home and placed it in my office, which too infrequently is a place where I get to sit in the same stillness. I have a very busy life, too busy. But I've placed it in a spot where as soon as I enter that room, it is the first thing I see. And 2 words that came to me during that time of solitude, and that was, be still. And this vessel today still is with me, calls me in my busy life to be still.
So I really am grateful to all the people who took a vessel in and used it in whatever way they used it, because however you used it was perfectly fine. However you thought of it is perfectly right. And there's just a range of really interesting stories that have come out of this that are part of the now collective wisdom of this project.
It made so much sense. And the 2 most resonant words to me as a part of this project are vessel and giving. And I think of the idea of a vessel as looking for or welcoming a gift, and the idea of giving as looking for some place to be receiving. So there's a symbiotic relationship of these 2 entities conceptually to me that seems to work pretty well.
The Patra vessels are going to continue the giving cycle, after this exhibition. They're being sold, and the profits and proceeds will go to two very important charities that are community serving. One is Save the Children, which has a worldwide connection to relief, to children's issues, to hunger, and is a very, very worthy organization that I'm happy to support. And the other is the Museum of Glass, to which I am extremely grateful, and to which does a beautiful job in my own community in bringing artists and viewers and people from all over the world to enjoy the art of the region and of the larger world of glass. The Patra vessels have been held by your hands and by mine, and even when the vessel has moved on to another place, the first-hand memory of it can still evoke its presence. Your two hands cupped in a bowl can act as a reminder that whatever is received is enough for the day.